Is Queen Jennah going to be in Guild Wars 3? Immediately, right off the bat, this seems like an absolutely preposterous statement, but the sentiment of it is actually something that has a lot of merit based on over a decade of speculation within the community and a bunch of interesting details that all come together to create what could be an incredibly important part of the Guild Wars 3 narrative. So let's dive into it. First things first, let's go over some quick details on who Queen Jennah is. Queen Jennah is the queen of the human nation of Krita and also current regent of the human kingdom of Ascalon, being a descendant of King Dork, who is the presumed ruler of humanity during the events of Guild Wars 3. We have seen Queen Jennah from the novel Edge of Destiny all the way to being a prominent member of the Tyrian Alliance in the modern day Guild Wars 2 story. Throughout her entire life, she has done many things such as ending the Ogre Revolt, but there are two incredibly important details. The first is that she is an incredibly powerful mesmer, one of the most powerful mesmers that have ever existed in Tyria. To end that aforementioned Ogre Revolt, she was able to create a clone of the Elder Dragon Kralkatorrik. We also experience her powers firsthand throughout the Guild Wars 2 story, like how she was able to create a long-lasting protective barrier around the entirety of Divinity's Reach that single-handedly protected the city from White Mantle attacks. The second big detail that is important to note for the purposes of this video is her right hand is Countess Anise, her personal bodyguard, and also the Master Exemplar, aka the leader of the Shining Blade, which is a storied human organization that, in its current form, works to protect the crown and the interests of the crown. Similar to Jennah, Anise is also an incredibly powerful mesmer, and is also considered one of the most powerful mesmers that humanity has ever known. Additionally, there is a lot of mystery surrounding Anise's age, where there are rumors that Countess Anise is much older than she claims, and that she uses mesmer magic to maintain her beauty and age. She is also a Veil of the Mesmer Collective, which is a semi-secretive, storied, and powerful organization of mesmers. Now, when we look at the story on the surface level, it is relatively straightforward. Jennah and Anise are two very powerful mesmers who apparently happen to grow up together and are two of the most influential people in Krita and Tyria as a whole. We know basics of their backstory, though a lot is unknown. And that unknown is where we start switching from true facts that we know about these characters and go full speculation. And I will say I do speculate about a fair amount of things on my channel, but this is maybe some speculation that is pretty far out there, and I just want to talk about it truly for the fun of speculation. There's a very good chance that there isn't anything else going on. But let's dive into the unknown. One of the biggest pieces of speculation across the entirety of the Guild Wars franchise is the true identity of Queen Jennah and Countess Anise. These are two prominent leaders of humanity, both of which wield powerful illusion magic. We know that there are some doubts about Countess Anise's true age, but honestly, some people have doubts about these characters' entire existence, and it all stems from one character who has existed within the Guild Wars franchise since the beginning, who we will likely be interacting with in Guild Wars 3 to some extent, the human goddess Lyssa. Lyssa is the dual-faced goddess of beauty, water, and illusion, who is by all means considered a singular entity, but throughout history has always been depicted as two twins by the name of Iya and Lyss. Now we know a bit about Lyssa, but not too much like many of the other human gods. We can find statues of her throughout Or and other pockets of humanity across Tyria. She is one of the original human gods that entered Tyria from elsewhere in the mists, and we know that Lyssa wields the same powers that mesmers also channel, of chaos and illusion. During the events of Living World Season 3, we learned that Lyssa helped the human god Balthazar return to Tyria, gifting Balthazar with a powerful magical mirror that allowed him to disguise himself as Lazarus. And the full extent of the speculation boils down to one very simple idea. Lyssa is an incredibly powerful entity who is depicted as being two twins. What if, for whatever reason, Lyssa has chosen to disguise herself or some sort of phantasm of herself into two different entities, taking the place of two young girls who would be destined to become great leaders, Queen Jennah and Countess Anise. We see Jennah and Anise being very alike, often working together a lot, working towards the same goals, and being incredibly powerful mesmers. It's just an idea that has absolutely no merit whatsoever, but the connections are incredible, and it feels like something that could very well be real. Now, right away, the biggest downside to this entire idea is that this completely devalues all the story built up with Queen Jennah and Countess Anise as individuals. These are two characters that we have gotten to know a lot about and have really cemented themselves as prominent story characters. But on the other hand, the utilization of these two characters can potentially really push the entire idea of Lyssa and the human gods forward an immense amount, where if this ends up somehow being real, we could look back on every single action that Jennah and Anis took throughout their lives and see how it all worked towards a specific goal or set of goals that Lyssa has. But of course, what could those goals even be? And truly, we don't really have anything that we could speculate about from any piece of evidence. We do know that Lyssa is likely to be more of a villain than an ally, given her connection to chaos and illusion, but also with how she helped Balthazar. At the end of Balthazar's life, Lyssa was the only one who Balthazar did not curse. So why would Lyssa want Balthazar to go on his path of fire to try to get rid of the Elder Dragons, which could consequentially destroy all of Tyria through the method that Balthazar was going about it? Potentially, she thought that she would be able to redirect the magics of Tyria to herself in order to empower herself, where she could be using the Mantle of Power through Jennah and Elise in order to manipulate events that could potentially lead to her empowering herself, or just to manipulate events for any other goal. Another idea is that maybe Lyssa is a mostly benevolent entity and her actions with Balthazar could be explained as her feeling bad for someone that she has known for a very long time and wanted to help him out. Seen with those emotions, potentially Lyssa has disguised herself as Jennah and Anis to be able to be in a hands-on position to try to help humanity whom she, at least at one point, cares very deeply about, or to protect Tyria, which is humanity's home. There's also potentially the chance that Lyssa could be doing all this from a point of narcissism or a lust for power. While all the human gods, including Lyssa, are revered by humanity and by some other people of other societies as well, it may potentially not be enough to satisfy Lyssa's hypothetical ego. For being able to be two prominent members of humanity, including the Queen of Humanity, could be doing a lot to help Lyssa feel more powerful than she already is. Not only does she get to experience humanity revering her as a god and praying to her, but she can see members of humanity revere her as a queen and countess as well. Now all this is truly just speculation, but if we were to take a moment to believe that this is real, Guild Wars 3 could be a good opportunity for us to explore this story. In a world focused a lot on the human gods and magic, I think it's safe to assume that we will be experiencing a lot of storylines connected to the gods. As such, I think we will have the opportunity to learn a lot about the drama between the gods, especially as the events of Guild Wars 3 will likely be building up to the story of the exodus of the gods in some form with the fall of Abaddon. If we are to assume that a lot of drama stuff is going on, we can assume that there will be some drama related to Lyssa in some form, or if not, we can assume that there will be some other storylines connected to Lyssa in some way. One of those storylines could be building up to the idea of Lyssa using the disguise of Queen Jennah and Countess Anis in some way, or could be building up the idea of Lyssa just disguising herself as something else in order to manipulate the world in some way. Through the Guild Wars 3 story, we could potentially meet Lyssa and learn a lot about who she is as an entity, what her goals are, what exactly she is capable of, and so on and so forth, which could lead to us learning that Lyssa, down the road, is thinking about or planning to disguise herself as two powerful figures of humanity who we could then speculate with more evidence to be Jennah and Anis. Alternatively, we could see Lyssa just disguising herself straight up as Jennah and Anis, though obviously just as a physical form, and not within the positions of power that we see them as today. Truly, there are so many potential ideas related to all of this, and they can be a little crazy, but they are fun to think about. I want to wrap up the speculation by talking about a very important piece of lore, which comes from the book Parables of the Gods. The parable of Lyssa reads as follows. From out of the darkness there stepped a child into the campfire's light, and she said, I am Lyssa, and I have come to teach you what is illusion and what is truth. But the soldiers there did not believe her. They laughed and said, if you are Lyssa, then show us your beauty, for we can surely use it on this dark night. We have lost hope that this war will end. The child approached, and her smile held divine grace. Share your food with me, and in return for your kindness, I will show you beauty the likes of you will never see again. And so the kind soldiers did, and the child ate with ravenous hunger. When the last bone had been tossed aside, and the last bean swallowed, the child began to skip around the outside of the campfire. She touched each man on his head, one at a time, as they laughed and jibed her until, one at a time, they fell into a deep slumber. Each man dreamed a different dream, but each dream was a vision of the life they would lead once the war was over. wives, children, riches, open air, health, and peace. And when they awoke upon the morrow, the child was gone, and the enemy had arrived. They fought joyfully with all their might, because they all remembered their dreams and knew they would win the war. Each man put his heart and soul into the battle, and each man, one at a time, was slaughtered. Wish this does confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lyssa has, historically, disguised herself as somebody else in order to manipulate events to achieve a certain goal, in the case of the parable, as a child to motivate the hearts of soldiers who fought for humanity. Why not many other times? And that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, this is entirely for the purpose of speculation, and this specific speculation is definitely a bit more far-fetched than some other stuff I've talked about, but definitely seems believable once you connect the dots. We just won't know until we know. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope you all are taking great care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.